Welcome to the Michele Tafoya podcast. It's been a couple days since the LIV Golf merger with the PGA took place. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, having had about 48 hours to let that simmer in and listen to a lot of different opinions. Mine might surprise you a little bit. You'll find out next.
Welcome to the Michele Tafoya podcast.
All right, so you may remember when LIV Golf first came on the scene. This is golf funded by the government of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia largely attributed to funding the 9/11 attacks or organizing the 9/11 attacks, calculating the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Numerous human rights violations over the years. That's Saudi Arabia. Now, we have a frequent guest on the show. I say frequent. He's been on a couple times. Zuby, a real smart guy, rapper, fitness guru, just a tremendous person who grew up in Saudi. And, you know, I think I would be really interested to hear his take, and maybe we will at some point. But the first person I thought of when this announcement was made that LIV and the PGA Tour were merging, I thought of Rory McIlroy. Now, there are a number of other golfers as well that you think of who turned down these unbelievable paydays with LIV to carry the flag of the PGA to say, we're not interested in blood money. We'll get into all of that in a second. But first, I have some other breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Genucel has upgraded their most popular package to feature their top-selling deep firming vitamin C serum, plus ultra retinol moisturizer with natural retinol alternatives. Let me remind you, I don't endorse products I don't use. I love this stuff. And right now you can take advantage of this limited time package upgrade for 70% off. That's a lot. Why waste time and money to go get work done when you can treat your face to Genucel skin care and have it shipped right to your door? Here's a Genucel.com review. I love this. This is from a guy, Robert, in Blessing, Texas. I purchased Genucel as a gift for my girlfriend. She said she saw results so fast, so we joined the concierge program immediately. It's honestly the best skincare she's ever used, and she's extremely impressed with all the Genucel products. I am too, as an aside. Her skin is noticeably softer and smoother. I can see and feel a difference too. She was already beautiful, and Genucel has made her more beautiful. To Robert's girlfriend, don't, he sounds like a good one. He sounds like a keeper. So, and Genucel's a keeper. I use all of their products. There's a cleanser that I love. Now, Genucel's secret is a family recipe for over 20 years that makes it safe for all skin types, perfect for men and women, made by a compounding pharmacist in small batches, always safe, cruelty-free, and natural. So go to Genucel.com, GENUCEL.com/Michele. Save over 70% off Genucel's most popular package featuring both the Genucel Ultra Retinol and the Genucel Firming Serum. Please do not wait. Again, it's GENUCEL.com/Michele. And as always, Michele with one L, please, MICHELE. Genucel.com/Michele. Get a complimentary spa essentials box with every package order, plus free upgrade to priority shipping. Genucel.com/Michele. Genucel.com/MICHELE. So, Rory McIlroy must have awakened to the news of the PGA Tour and LIV merging. This is not really a sports story, folks. This is some people have called it a story of hypocrisy. Some people have called it a story of greed. It's really completely turned the golf world upside down, and not because of the game of golf. This has nothing to do with the sticks that you carry in your bag. This has nothing to do with the length of your drive. This has nothing to do with your short game. This has to do with principles. So LIV Golf, funded by Saudi Arabia, was offering tons of money to high-profile golfers. And I think Phil Mickelson was the first one to jump. Now, Greg Norman is associated with this thing. This is about money. They gave Phil Mickelson a ginormous contract to leave the PGA and go to LIV. You couldn't do both because the PGA said, nah, we're not down with this. Saudi Arabia paying you this much money to go play golf because we know where that money comes from. We know what is associated with that money. Human rights violations and as most people agree, an attachment to 9/11, which killed almost 3,000 innocents on American soil and in the sky. So this is akin, and look, there have been people out there saying, well, you're okay with the NBA in bed with China. No, I'm not. And I've said that multiple times. We've had Enes Kanter Freedom on this show. I've said that multiple times. I'm not at all okay with the NBA entangled with China. And it looks like Major League Baseball may be getting entangled with China. And I don't agree with that at all for very similar reasons. There is slavery in China. There is genocide in China. There are human rights violations in China. China is a hostile actor on the geopolitical stage, and don't let anyone try to fool you about that. The weather balloon that crossing the skies was a spy balloon. We know. We have evidence. We have receipts all over the place about China. Well, it's a similar case with Saudi Arabia. So now Saudis go, well, let's go with golf. We've got a ton of money, and all we have to do is attract a handful of really good players, Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, some others, and we can have our own tour. Well, they did, and it didn't do well on television. It didn't attract the diehard golf fans. As my 17-year-old put it to me, it's kind of not classy, their events. It's very different. Hey, you can wear shorts as a golfer on LIV. Woohoo! Because the PGA is a little more traditional. They require you wear pants. Now you can wear shorts on LIV, and your contract may be like $800,000 a year. I mean, it's crazy money. And we're going to fly you private everywhere, and you don't have to golf as much. We'll keep you to a limited number of rounds per year. So all these great, tantalizing things to bring golfers like Phil Mickelson and Brooks Koepka over to LIV Golf. Well, the PGA stood firm. No, PGA players will never have to look 9/11 families in the eye and feel bad. That's pretty much a direct quote from Jay Monahan, who's the commissioner of the PGA. If you golf on the PGA, you will never have to look a 9/11 family in the eye and apologize or feel guilty. So when we all woke to the news, I think it was Tuesday of this week, that the PGA and LIV had merged. I really thought we were getting punked at first because the stance was so strong. We're not going to join. We're not going to, and by the way, if you golf for LIV, you can't be on the Ryder Cup team. You can't, all these penalties. And these guys were, just so, and Rory McIlroy, bless the guy's heart, he was one of the most, he and Tiger Woods both turned down, I think Tiger Woods turned down an $800 million contract to play on LIV. And Rory turned down an offer to play on LIV. And they said, we support the PGA. We don't want to take this money from the Saudi government. We don't. We're principled. And I thought that Jay Monahan was principled. And here's where it gets really ugly. See, there were lawsuits going back and forth between these two organizations, the PGA and LIV Golf. And in order for lawsuits to come to fruition, you've got to expose a lot of evidence to each other, which means LIV Golf would have to open their books, which meant the PGA had to open their books. Neither side wanted to open their books, and so they came to this settlement. All right, let's keep each other out of the courtroom, and let's just get together and kumbaya it. And it's been positioned as this boon to the golf world. We are going to have golfers from every corner of the planet who can now win a major championship or a tour champion, whatever it's going to look like. That's the thing, is we have no idea really what this is going to look like, because LIV had their events, the PGA had their events, the European Tour had their events, and now they're all holding hands. And it's hard to stomach. It really is. And I tweeted about this and I said, Cyndi Lauper saying money changes everything. And someone tweeted back at me and said, you're being really short-sighted here because this is capitalism at its best. And no one's had a problem with the NBA in China. Well, let me go back to that again. I've always had a problem with the NBA and China. And I've been vociferous about that on this podcast. So I always have. I don't like it. And that's the reason I don't follow the NBA anymore. And I used to cover the NBA. So the NBA was a great thing in my career. And again, the reason I'm sitting in this chair today and no longer doing sports is in part because I want to talk about issues like this that I think are far more important than the ultimate score of the NBA finals. And that may be extremely important to you and to all the players and coaches and teams involved. But to me, it could be any one of us over in China that is suffering a human rights abuse, but we're lucky enough to be here. So shout out to NBA players. Don't forget that, okay? Because there are people being tortured and abused and enslaved and re-educated in China that could easily be your relatives. If you could just put yourself in their places, would you continue to have the relationship with China? And LeBron, don't tell us we need to be educated. I think it's the other way around. So, for those of you using the argument that it's okay that the NBA is with China, no. And I've also been vocal about the Olympic Games twice being awarded to Beijing. And then to Russia. This is what we call sports washing. And for those of you unfamiliar with that term, what it amounts to is countries or entities saying, look at us, we're involved in sports. Ignore the bad stuff over there. Look at us. We sponsor the Olympics. We're hosting the Olympics. We love our NBA. It's called sports washing. And so now Saudi Arabia is trying it with golf and with soccer or European football. The contracts they are now offering to these players to get them out of the Premier Leagues and to play for these Saudi teams. Again, I think there was one yesterday, and I should look it up. My son was telling me about it. I think they offered, was it Ronaldo? They offered him like $1.6 billion. So this is the effort to say, look at us, we're mainstream, we have sports. And we don't just have any sports. We have big time sports with famous representatives of those sports. So this is a tough pill for me to swallow. I'm a huge golf fan. Been to the Ryder Cup multiple times. I've been to the British Open in Scotland, the Open Championship. I'm not saying that's look at me. I'm saying that one of the reasons I love golf is its traditions, is its commitment to honor and honesty and the beautiful tenets of the game of golf that, if you get caught cheating, you're losing strokes and it's not a good idea. So there's a beauty about the game, and there's a beauty about the rules and the simplicity of you're out there, you're golfing, you keep your score, and you are honorable about it. Unless you're Kim Jong-un and you get a hole-in-one on every hole, as he is rumored to have done. So golf for me was it was this bastion of purity. And the PGA was maintaining that status until this week. And this came as a shock to a lot of people. So bear with me while I look up, because Rory McIlroy has really been a symbol of this whole movement. And so let me just see. This is about 2 hours ago. I'm finding this on the interweb from the Independent. Rory McIlroy, the sacrificial lamb, left counting the cost of golf's merger. So let's see what he says. A range of emotions will have coursed through Rory McIlroy after learning about the PGA Tour's merger with Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, PIF Shock. McIlroy still, quote unquote, hates LIV, but is coming to terms with golf's reality. The PIF, which is the Public Investment Fund, that's the Saudi ownership of LIV. In the sport, it was here to stay. That doesn't change the fact that McIlroy, who labeled himself a, quote, sacrificial lamb during his Canadian Open press conference, dedicated exorbitant amounts of time and energy instead of precious tournament preparation and practice. The intent was to uphold the PGA Tour's legacy, which appears to have been traded in exchange for limitless investment, in essence, safeguarding the Tour's future. Limitless investment. That's the thing. The Saudis have a bottomless pit of money. Quote, it's hard for me to not sit up here and feel somewhat like a sacrificial lamb and feeling like I've put myself out there and this is what happens, McIlroy added. Removing myself from the situation, I see how this is better for the game of golf. There's no denying it. Yeah. And so you have to wonder, what was McIlroy's sacrifice all about if this is where we end up? John Berg is making himself known. What's up, John?
Rory says it's going to be better for golf, but there's a cost with everything here. I have a friend who once referred to the NBA in a similar situation as this as showing their bare ass to the world. I don't know how this doesn't end up in a situation where the PGA pleases absolutely nobody. It's pretty obvious too to people who the Saudis in certain contexts are certainly not our friends. And when you project the fact that you don't really stand for anything at all, that just doesn't bode well. It's not a good thing to repeatedly do as a culture over and over and over again. The dollars will flow. There's no doubt. I'm sure the courses. I mean, it's going to get more exotic. There's no doubt about that. But at what cost? You mentioned China, and you mentioned North Korea. China protects North Korea politically. They are a puppet state, essentially. They allow them to exist in the current state. They would collapse without them. Saudi Arabia is certainly better than other places, but especially to our more liberal sensibilities in the United States. Do you remember the outrage about Khashoggi and
no
the virtue
question.
signaling going into the 2020 election? All politics aside, that was an unbelievably that issue, that whole story was pretty front and center for just a journalist story from Saudi Arabia in that election. And then we end up, not only that, the news just came down. There was the fist pump. Everybody remembers that.
Joe Biden fist pumping, the prince of Saudi, or principal player of Saudi Arabia.
And we're going back 12 months there. But just, I mean, it was just in the news this week that they're again going to cut back on oil output.
Production, yeah.
And this is a kingdom. This is ruled by a family. I don't think a lot of people understand exactly how it works over there. We are projecting weakness and the fact that we don't stand for a damn thing. And like my buddy said, a good journalist friend of mine, a sports journalist, we're showing him our bare ass.
Well, there you go. I can't disagree with that this is capitulating. This is bowing. This is saying your money is worth more than our integrity. Now, my husband and I were talking about this. We are avid golf fans. And he said, no one wanted to show their cards. There are so many layers to this. And when will we ever know exactly what happened? Because so few people were in the room where it happened, were in this decision. This was just out of nowhere. Boom, we've merged. I mean, they're working to merge or they're working on an agreement. Nothing. Boom, it's done. And the PGA Tour players weren't consulted. Certainly Rory wasn't consulted. None of them were. So, I listened to players like Hunter Mahan. I listened to Bryson DeChambeau, who is part of LIV, and heard their sides of this thing. Oh, this is going to be great for golf. I hope that's true. But as John just put it, and as I've said to all of this, we keep succumbing to money and countries that aren't our friends. And again, I see, I've been raised to anticipate arguments coming toward me when I say something. Oh, but someone's going to say this. I can hear it already. Hey, America's not perfect. True. Would you rather go live in Saudi Arabia? If you're a gay person, would you rather go live in Saudi Arabia? Would you rather live in China? Would you want to be a Chinese national? I really doubt it, unless you want all your freedoms stripped. Look, at least here we have a large measure of our own say in how we live our lives. And so now, among those choices is going to be how you support the PGA, how you support whatever this thing is going to be called, this entity is going to be called. Will you watch it? Will you attend events? How will you feel about this? And what about the players who have those enormous contracts and are keeping them, and now they're still allowed to go back to the PGA? So many questions yet to be answered. But I think, and I'm not a fan of knee-jerk reactions, but I think a lot of the knee-jerk reactions, the gut punches that were felt around the world of golf and in the sports world, and just 9/11 families who feel absolutely betrayed. Absolutely betrayed. And they've been saying it publicly, and they may plan a protest at the LA Open this weekend. Or it's which Open is it this weekend, John, that's being played at LA Country Club?
I will look that up.
Yeah, I'm a golf fan and I don't know what the event is this week. But it's being played at LA Country Club, and I heard a 9/11 wife. She lost her husband in the towers.
Oh, it's the Open.
The U.S. Open?
Yep.
At LA Country Club. Whew. She was asked, will your group, the 9/11 families, will you plan a protest? And she hinted that, well, let's just put it this way. Don't be surprised if this weekend is full of that kind of drama. Damn, the world is full of so much drama right now. And I feel like America, just normally at the forefront, leading the way, being the shining city on the hill, being a beacon for everyone, that liberty and hope and freedom and truth exists somewhere. I feel like we're seriously void of the leadership. And I think at some point next week, we will talk about this ever expanding number of nominees or candidates running for the Republican nomination. I'm not sure this is boding well for us. And I'll tell you why, but we'll save that one until next week. In the meantime, thanks for listening to the Michele Tafoya podcast. And as always, with a special shout out to Jay Monahan. Be brave and do good. And we'll see you next time.